Hey, everybody, it's Dana Brooks of Fasig Brooks Law Offices, and we are back for another episode of the EmPower Hour brought to you by the EmPower Plant. We have a great guest today. I'm so excited to see you again. I ran into this lovely woman a couple of months ago at an event in Jacksonville. Lynette, okay, I'm going to try this. Lealwalcott. No, tell me. No, what is
That's
it?
it. That's
Is it?
close.
Okay, good.
Lealwalcott, yes.
Okay, for today, let's call you Lynette.
Thank you.
But no, seriously, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome
It's
to
an
the
honor.
panel. You have got so much going on, and you got a lot of good going on in your life, and you have got some struggles.
I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
I want us to hear from you, get to know you a little better, and then you tell us a little bit more about them. We're talking about breast cancer this month because it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I just listened to an NPR, a local segment that they did, and they had some doctors on, and they were talking about treatment differences. So we can get into that sort of thing too, to help people be more aware, be more knowledgeable, and take control of their health. So welcome. Thank you for being willing to share your story with us, Lynette, because I know it's deeply, deeply personal, but you'll help people, I promise you. So thank you for coming.
It's an honor.
Okay, we've got Kia Thomas back, our communications director. We just got back from DC, so she's back in the house. We got everybody this week. Y'all, I appreciate y'all missing us last week. We couldn't do it live. We've got Carrie Roan back. Carrie, my law partner. Hey, lady. And we've got Rose Caswick back for her very important contribution each week, which is, I don't know about this at all.
It's amazing. No, it's awesome.
I don't like apple cider.
Oh,
I don't like apple juice.
It's an apple cider mimosa. So it's some homemade apple cinnamon syrup and apple cider
that part
and
looks
prosecco
with
a caramel rim.
That's amazing.
So and it's Whitney asked me to do a pink drink, and I said no. And so instead, we're doing this in honor of Christina Applegate, who is a breast cancer survivor. Apple, you get it?
I do get it. And this is not bad.
It's good, right? It's really good.
This caramel business, that's okay. Mm-hmm. This reminds me of all those TikToks where the people are making their coffee in the morning.
Yeah, this is from a TikTok. This is a recipe from TikTok.
So you know it's good. You know it's been tested. It's been focus grouped.
It's delicious.
To millions of people, you know it's good.
There's been focus groups. And Christina Applegate is kicking butt right now. I just finished watching a Netflix series with her. I think it's called Dead to Me. It's really so cute. Good.
One of my favorite. Have they come back? Have they gotten a new season?
I just watched season 2. I don't think there's a season 3.
Not a new one yet.
It is so good. It is so good. I love that show. She is hilarious. She's one of the funniest actresses. And, they say being funny is the hardest thing for an actor. They say it's harder than
everything. Comedy is a different thing, different challenge.
Yeah. Love her. But yeah, she's the bomb. She is a total breast cancer ass kicker. And so I love that about her. And when you get it when you're young and otherwise look healthy, people don't realize it's a struggle. They think you can't have cancer, you look great. And so Lynette, I kind of think about you when I think that. So would you be kind enough to share with us what you would like to share with us about your journey and what's going on in your life?
Absolutely. Like you said, it is hard when you think everything's fine and then boom, something hits you out the blue. And that's how it was with me and my journey for breast cancer. I guess the biggest thing that I would say with breast cancer for me is knowing your body. Because I had went for a mammogram maybe 4 months before I found a lump. And with my mammogram came out clear, saying that there was nothing, I was fine. And I noticed a lump first, about 4 months later after I got out of the shower. And so I thought it was gonna, this will go away because I had a clear mammogram. So I really didn't think too much of it. But a month and a half after I felt the lump, I noticed a, disfiguration of the breast. And that's when I was like, okay, this is serious.
That sounds really aggressive, fast
right.
changes.
Yeah, it was pretty aggressive. Yeah, so I went and got tested again, had a biopsy, and then in October of 2019 was when I was diagnosed with, I have a lobular breast cancer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's invasive?
Invasive lobular cancer. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And would you share with us what your treatment journey has been?
Oh, my treatment journey has been long. I had to go through chemo, and I went through what they call the Red Devil chemo.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I went through that for, that one was 4 or 5 months. And so that until, you know, I chose a team out in Atlanta. So I go back and forth to Atlanta to get my treatment. And that the chemo part was hard on me. I lost my hair. My children, actually, my hair started coming out in the shower. And so my son actually shaved my hair, the rest of my hair off with the girls. And that was a moment all in itself, you know, it was funny. And then there was tears and, you know, so it's just a whole moment. But yeah, so I had the chemo, and then I had radiation, and then I did have to have a double mastectomy where they take both of the breasts. And then I had, for my reconstruction, I had, they did a cut in my stomach and took some of that and put it for breast. So
Okay.
that has been my journey. I'm still on oral chemo and a shot. That the oral chemo I take nightly, and the shot I take every month. And so I totally understand, you said the journey of when people look at you and they, you know, outwardly you look like, well, okay, nothing could be going on, but it's a real struggle. It's a real struggle daily.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to get around to our panel. I've got a lot of my own questions, but I wanted to get to our panel. Carrie, you know Lynette, and so what are your, you know, you know a little bit more about her story and how remarkable she is. I want to get into, Lynette, what you do. You have a really interesting career. But Carrie, what are your thoughts and comments so far?
Well, I'm going to try to say it without crying, but Lynette is incredibly inspirational and strong. And when you follow her on social media, all you see are uplifting posts, you know, inspirational posts trying to give people strength, empower people. She's just so busy trying to help everybody else. There is never a post about woe is me. There is never a post about feeling bad or feeling down. She posted the entire time she was in the hospital. I mean, she was in the hospital, living in the hospital for like 2 months, and she has young children. And, you know, she's always putting such a positive spin on things. And to me, it's so inspirational. I can't even imagine what it does for people who are in the same shoes as she is, battling breast cancer or trying to overcome breast cancer. Yeah. I'm so inspired by Lynette every day. I really am.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know Carrie shared your story with me some, and so I know she's got a special place in her heart for you.
Right.
Yeah. And you know what you said about the experience with your children. You know, how has that been for you? How has it been for them? Because I would imagine they're scared. They know cancer is a bad word. They've heard it. They know nobody wants it. What do you do while you're fighting your own battle to make sure you're there for your children? How do you reassure them whenever they get scared? How did that go? How did you tell them?
Well, we've always been a family of faith. And so I think that's what we have leaned on, is our faith. You know, when I talk to them about it, that's how we talk about it. Like, you know, this is what the doctor's saying, but we know who we trust and who we believe in. And so that has been our anchor through this whole journey. Being positive, you know, maybe sometimes on my part to a fault of trying to be strong, because I have been strong for my kids, so they wouldn't see like some of the behind the doors, but my kids know me very well. So even when I try to be strong, they know, okay, mom's really kind of feeling something right now. But it's just being strong and being encouraging and really I like to keep positive words, you know, in them, in me, and even around my house. All you see is you're going to see something positive every time you look up. And so I just don't do the negativity. I don't like stress. No, we just keep it positive and we just trust that everything's going to be okay. Yeah.
You have your faith. That's great.
I do. Not to say we haven't had tears, because we had some tears, but we have our faith. We come back to that.
You know, I think it's important for children to see their parents struggle and to see their parents be fearful and to be mortal,
Right.
really,
Yes.
because everything you're doing, you're modeling your behavior for their little eyes. And so, you know, life is going to throw you some curves, and they are going to know how to manage them based on how they see their parents handle them.
That's right.
And this is a biggie. So, you know, I tend to be optimistic, but this to me looks like an incredible opportunity they're having to really grow, mature, and develop resiliency. Because if you talk to many people in mental health, they'll tell you the biggest problem with our young people today is developing resiliency.
Right.
It's harder. Of course, they got a lot more to deal with than we did. That's just the way it is. True. And so many things they deal with that we don't even know about because it's in that hand on that little computer. But yeah, I think that's a good thing. I applaud you for that, for having the bravery and the honest. So, you know, everybody's going to do that their own way, you know, and you know your kids better than anybody. So
that's right.
But yeah, I have a lot of respect for that. Kia, have you had any, I think everybody has had breast cancer impact their lives in some way. I was actually just thinking when you were talking about your treatment, I want to get back into it because I think knowledge is key. And I was just thinking, Carrie and Rose, the last time I had a case, because we've all done medical malpractice cases and we've all had a breast cancer case, everybody has. The treatment is different now. The regimen's different. So very, very interesting. I want to get back more into it. But Kia, how has breast cancer sort of impacted your life? What sort of thoughts and questions do you have for our guest, Lynette?
It has kind of hit home. My mother actually is a breast cancer survivor. And I think after she came through it,
years, wonderful.
Pink became her favorite color. My mother never had a favorite color. And now pink is her favorite color. But I guess with you, Lynette, I think the biggest quote that I'm thinking of right now is, you know, fear is just courage that has said its prayers, because when you talked about your faith, and it seems as though everything you're doing is faith-based, you know, what has turned, well, I'm not going to say what, because we know the what, but when you merged into what your next thing was going to be after you found out about the diagnosis, what was it? How did you jump into that and just say, hey, I'm going to do this now?
Yeah, because you've got a lot of things going on. This is a great time to tell us what you do. You got your hands on things.
I do. Well, I've always had a passion for, you know, empowering women, especially empowering young girls. And I think, even though I speak into women, but I think right now with the journey of the breast cancer, my passion is really even more so the young girls and the children. And I believe so because I've seen how this has impacted my youngest child, and her not knowing really how to navigate through this. And in this journey, I had a buddy that was also going through treatments, and she didn't make it through, and she passed away. And that was kind of hard for me, but because we were close. But she had a daughter also the same age as my daughter. And so, and how that left, you know, the daughter and her not knowing how to navigate. And I've seen so many children that their parents have cancer, and it's, you know, and then the focus just becomes on, you know, now everybody's fighting this big C word with mom or with dad, but there's a child that doesn't, you know, that needs a special attention. And so noticing that and walking through that with my daughter is really what made me say, hey, you know what, this is what I'm going after. And like you said, I do a lot of different things. I speak, I'm an author. We just put out a book. I have 3 books now that are out. I'm the owner of Swan School of Jacksonville. Where
what is that?
What is that? It is a school of protocol, school of etiquette, teaching from youth all the way to adults. How do we handle things that are going on in society and make, you know, and stand our ground while also making the other person feel considerate. So, I mean, there's a wide range in there, from just learning dining etiquette to, like I said, learning how to conquer the world, conquer society. And in that, I also am a girl life facilitator.
What is that? What's girl life?
Girl Life is a group where you take young girls, and we have these workshops. And it's funny that you were talking about resilience, because our first workshop here in Jacksonville is Rising to Resilience. For the young girls. And so in these workshops, we talk about resilience, or whatever the workshop is about. We give the girls an opportunity to be able to share. It's a safe place and talk. We have a project where now they can come home, and anytime they're feeling a certain way about whatever topic, they have that, keepsake to bring back in what we've talked about and all the tools that they now have to fight those issues. And so I'm really excited about the Girl Life facilitators and the Swan School. And just anyway, I'm just here to serve. So I don't really put myself in a box. If I can help and I can serve, especially women and young girls. There's also a gentleman's program here at the Swan School to teach our young men how to be gentlemen. And so that's needed. And so that's a few of what I do.
Yeah. When I was a little girl, okay, I'm going to get emotional talking about this. Do y'all remember Gayfers?
Yes. Yes.
Love Gayfers so much. Love Gayfers. They had a teen board, and they had, when I was growing up in Pensacola, they had something they called White Gloves and Party Manners. And it was a little etiquette class. So I called it Don't Embarrass Your Family When You Go Out to Eat lessons. But they would tell you things like how to introduce yourself, when to use your name, and how to do things, where to sit, and yada yada. Now, a lot of that I would find probably outdated in terms of any kind of gender distinctions. But you do need to know how to act in public. That's all there is to it. And so my daughter, they had something like that when she was a little girl. A little after school thing. It wasn't called that, but it's so necessary. You ever meet people nowadays that are extremely educated? They may be owners or big, important, influential people, and they don't know how to eat. They don't know how to act in public. You're just like, who raised you? I just find myself looking all the time, going, who raised you? But yeah, I think it's a very important thing. What got you interested in that?
Well, I've kind of always been that way. It's probably part of my upbringing, really. Part of my upbringing. And I've always been interested in, anything like that, anything etiquette. I mean, I probably could live, like you said, it's probably outdated, but I'm like, when it was in date, that'd probably be my favorite era. I love the end where we do the ball gowns and have the dances, and
every time.
That's me. Okay. Yes.
Let me ask you this. How many of you, when you're out to dinner and there are men at the table, how many of them get up whenever you leave the table and come back?
I love that.
Do that anymore?
I see it sometimes. I love it. I do too. I do too. It's so polite. It's so polite.
It's so elegant. It's so caring. I love it. But you never see it. Never see it. It's very, very rare. It's only in really older guys. But you need that. You need to know how to act like you got some fetching up. Rose, we have not heard from you, so I want to hear what your thoughts are. Again, also as a medical malpractice attorney, cancer treatment is so different. It seems like it's changing all the time. I listened to something this morning. It sure does sound good. The punchline sounds good, but nobody wants it. But Rose, we've had clients and we've had people who've come to us for help just to make sure that this didn't have to happen to them, a lot of that sort of thing. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my mother is a breast cancer survivor. And she has a friend who has more recently been diagnosed with breast cancer. And so she was kind of trying to help her and Sherpa her through the process. But so much has changed that there's only, so much that she can offer. Well, this is how they did it when, I was going through it 10 years ago or whatever. And here's how they're doing it now. It's interesting too, talking about how you deal with it, talking about your diagnosis or your treatment or everything that you're going through with children. Because my mother's mother died when she was a teenager of cancer. And that was in the early 70s. And so I honestly don't know if it was just like her parents tried to like handle that themselves and keep the information away from the kids as much as possible, or if it was that the medicine was not there and they truly didn't really understand what type of cancer she had or how to deal with it. But it's like, so you see that where she just really didn't know much about what was going on with her mom's health too. When she had it, I mean, I was out of the house, I was in law school, so I wasn't there seeing the day to day, but we talked about stuff, and I think it's good that we're progressing to be more open about all of that. Not to scare real young kids or anything, but to see what life is all about. And for Lynette, I'm just kind of wondering if your diagnosis or the things that you've been going through have changed your perspective or how you do your business, because obviously you're in the business of positivity. It must be a little bit challenging, or maybe it's opened you up to seeing things in new ways. Can you speak to that a little bit?
And it has definitely opened me up to see things in new ways. Just like what you were talking about, my communication is different. Kind of the same experience when I grew up. I knew that my grandmother had passed from cancer, but it was nothing that we talked about, as a family. We just didn't do it. And so, but in the back of my mind, growing up as a little girl, I always thought about, my grandmother died of cancer. And so initially when I was diagnosed, it was like this thing that I had carried, as a little girl. It's like, oh my gosh, the biggest fear. And so that immediate response was, oh, I'm going to be just like grandma,
Right.
And because we didn't discuss that, it wasn't until, that was my immediate. And then grabbing back on my faith was when I was like, no, I don't have to accept that. I have all these tools and faith in me, and I leaned on that. But my communication, I believe that it is paramount that we are, to some degree, transparent and open with our children, with our family, to a certain extent, as far as, what we have experienced. So, they have tools, what I'm saying? It's, I understand covering and keeping, but just imagine if we sit down and talk about it, then we have tools to overcome those things. So that has been one thing that has changed, the communication. And just also, I believe that before, I've always been kind of a go-getter, but it was also a little bit like, oh, it'll happen in time. After the diagnosis and going through this journey, I embrace each day like it could literally be my last day. I want to enjoy it. I don't, I push myself away from anything that, is negative or doesn't serve me, to have the best day, the best moments possible, especially with my children. We get so busy, trying to make a living and trying to do stuff and trying to do this, that this journey has really caused me to, let me stop, pause, and enjoy my children, enjoy my grandchildren, and just the beauty. I'll take a walk and just be like, oh my gosh, and so that has really changed for me. Yes.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, because we've talked about it a little bit, do you have a family history of breast cancer or any kind of cancers?
Well, my grandmother was the only one that I knew of that had cancer in my family.
Yeah. And again, with your children being so transparent with them, that is going to help obviously build resiliency with them. Because cancer, I was listening to a talk this morning, and things are so different now. The last time I had a case of any that I remember a lot of, I think it was 2010. And then they would do the double mastectomy, they would do the reconstruction, it'd be beautiful. And then they'd start radiation. And you never knew how that your skin and everything was going to respond to the radiation. So sometimes it would just ruin everything you had done. And so now I think they kind of do some surgery initially to get rid of it and get you set up for whatever, if you need a graft for the back or whatever. And then you do your chemo radiation, and then maybe a year later you do it. I don't even remember if you do chemo or radiation first. And of course, it probably obviously depend on the type of cancer that you have, stage, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it changes. And I have mixed feelings. In some ways it's reassuring because I know they're looking at it all the time and they're doing, changing it and tweaking it all the time. But then it's not reassuring because you're like, do you not actually understand this?
That's
Nope.
right.
We hope this is progress and not just change.
It's been a minute. Y'all have had some time.
Yeah.
No, if you ever read, golly, what is the name of that book? It's the History of Cancer, the Biology of Cancer. What the heck is the name of that book? Came out a few years ago. A doctor wrote it. And it basically just talks about how radiation came about, how chemotherapy came about, how surgery came about, how we ended up treating cancer, and how little they have known about it until alarmingly recently. So, but the good news is, I mean, like right now, whenever we were all practicing in that area, they would treat a breast cancer, or it's a stomach cancer, or it's a dermatological cancer. It is not, they didn't look at crosses, but like now they were talking about these assays that they have now that will test you for all kinds of cancers. Right. And like they had one person who had a breast cancer, but it had melanoma behavior. And so they actually needed to treat it as a melanoma, even though it was located in the breast. I mean, that to me sounds like something they should have known a minute ago, but I am glad that they're knowing it now. I am glad, you know, so I would think the amount of education you are doing, amount of educating yourself has got to be tremendous. I want to ask about that. How do you get the information to make intelligent, informed decisions about your care?
Yes, that is a big one, actually, because I would say if you know, God forbid anybody diagnosed or has to go through this or anything, I'm just saying I went through 3 different doctors with my diagnosis. Get opinions, do your research, you know, so that you know, because like you said, initially that's how they approached me, was like, hey, let's just do surgery. And I hadn't had a test to tell me what kind of cancer or anything, you know. And so that's why I got the different opinions. And then going through and having to go and do my own research, I had to break down, you know, because I am not a medical person. So I had to break down every little word and you know, try to understand what it meant and how it affected me. I went through so many changes. At first I was like doing my research. There's so much out there too. That's just, you know, that in itself can have you in a tailspin, really. Yeah. Cause I was like, okay, I wasn't going to go I did not want chemo for nothing. So I was like, I'm just, and then you got people out there saying, well, all you have to do is juice and do. So I went and bought a juicer and you know, big old bags of carrots. And I did.
But you know, that's not crazy though.
It's not.
Because do you remember this? Do you remember when Farrah Fawcett, remember she had cancer?
Yeah.
She had a horrible cancer. I think it was anal cancer. It was just the worst kind of the worst location, just a miserable way to have to exist. But this was back in, gosh, this is a long time ago. But I remember she was doing something at the time that was considered very radical, because you know, cancer is nothing but your immune system not being able to fight something that's coming for it. Okay. It's just, it's more than I can handle. And so she back then was flying to Germany to get immune boosting treatments, because instead of killing everything, including good stuff, I want to ramp up my immune system to fight this stuff. And she was getting these shots like mistletoe in her stomach, all kinds of stuff. Okay. And everybody thought she was nuts. Well, guess what's mainstream now? Immunotherapy. So you know what I mean? So that's one of those things. Now, of course, she had greater, probably far greater resources than the average person back then, certainly, but it just goes to show you sometimes, because I'm conflicted on that too, because you hear all these people, I'm doing my own research, so I'm not going to get vaccinated, yada, yada, and you're like, oh no, don't listen to everything that comes in your ear. Because unless you have really, honestly, unless you've been educated and taken statistics and things like that, you don't really understand trusted sources. I mean, if you're not a lawyer who has to go through a Fry or a Daubert hearing to make sure that the jury doesn't hear garbage, you know, science, you don't know how to discern medical literature and see if it's something valid and reliable. So I would think you could be so overwhelmed by options and education to the point of almost becoming disabled, you know, like immobilized by it. And I wanted to ask you that too, like about support. How important is it to you, or how meaningful has it been for you to engage with other people fighting this fight or who have fought it already and won?
I would say very important. Very important, because you can, you know, I have my, you know, you have your family, but, you know, they can only identify or be there for support for so much. but it's like when you can find somebody who's been through it or is going through it, they understand, they understand, what you're feeling. And so to find somebody like that, that's just when I had my buddy that was golden. And it was hard to, because I'm one that I don't, it takes me a minute to just trust people. Yeah. So with her, it's like, this is my buddy. And then, but having that support has been just golden for me, having those people around. And then, even with family, understanding that it's hard on them as well, just like it's hard on me. So you really got to balance that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Carrie, what are your thoughts? Lynette a little bit better than we do, but what are you thinking about as you're listening to her?
I have a very personal question for you, Lynette. And I think that you're willing to share, but if you're not willing to share, please hold back. But how did it change? So obviously your body has changed significantly, right? So you went through a period of time where your breasts were removed, then you had reconstructive surgery. I think you did it all at the same time because you were in the hospital for so long. But my question really is, how did that change the way you felt about yourself, if it did? And then how did you overcome the way that it was making you feel about yourself? Any negative feelings, thoughts that you had about yourself? Because as much as we try to disassociate with ourselves, the way that we look physically, we still do, look at ourselves critically, and we still want to feel pretty. And sometimes like wanting to feel pretty, right? So, right. So if you can speak to that, I think that might be really helpful for our viewers.
Right. That had a great impact on me. It did. I had I didn't have it at the same time. I had the mastectomy, and then I had like fillers in for a few months before I had the reconstructive surgery. And so, but even with that, things have changed. You just don't look the same. You don't feel the same. And then after I had the reconstructive surgery, it did affect me. Because first, going back, just on chemo alone with breast cancer, they put you in so much steroids that I gained 30 pounds from just going through the chemo process. And so that, I'm one who I like to walk, I like to be fit. And so that just threw me in a tailspin anyway. And then to have the mastectomy, that was more of for me, it was just how it hits your mind, and like you say, you get this feeling initially, even though people will say, oh, you look fine, or, people coming to you all kind of ways, not understanding, oh, so you get a breast job, you get a free breast job and a free tummy tuck, and you're looking like, what I'm paying for that? You know what I'm saying? This is not free, and it's not that. You know what I'm saying? It's more like a transplant, and it's you don't look the same or feel the same, and I struggled, and even to this day, you know what I mean? Sometimes I look and I have to speak to myself. You know what I'm saying? Looking in the mirror, okay, Lynette, stay in the present. Because I'll be like, man, I wish my body was, I wish I had my body back. I want my old body back, or because it doesn't even feel like the same. But then I have to speak to myself. You stay in the present, you enjoy now, you're blessed, you're here, you're living, you're breathing. And you have people surrounding you that love you just how you are. So I am constantly, it's not something that, oh, I conquered that. I'm constantly speaking to myself.
Yeah.
Affirmations, right? Affirmations.
Oh, yes.
You are beautiful and your body does look great. Do you talk to, because your daughter's young, do you talk to your daughter about that and try to use that as a lesson for her and her body image?
Oh, I do. I'm very open with my girls. So yes, we talk about that. They've seen pictures, I'm just very open, so that they, they see and they understand. And like you said, I want them to be strong, and I want them to have that tool. If they were to face anything in life, they would be able to look back and say, we got this, mom did this, so we got the same strength and power she had, so we can do it too. So I'm very open, and I tell them all the time, my girls are absolutely beautiful. So yes, they know that.
I love that. Yeah. I can't remember what I was going to say about that. That was heartwarming to hear you say that. Kia, what are you thinking? You got any questions or follow-up comments?
I'm thinking about a lot of transparency, and just to kind of piggyback off of what Carrie just stated, you know, one of the biggest statistics that they just talked about recently had to do with our girls on Facebook and Instagram. You know, we still have some of our, you know, young girls that are going through the cancer process. And, you know, in my era, which I call myself a geriatric millennial, because I'm like on that first part of the cusp, the first 2 years of the millennials. You know, we didn't get the internet until I started going to college. So a lot of the things that are going on, it was, I guess you can call it little. And we were able to kind of get through it. Now it's like right in their face. So you think about, when you were talking, I was thinking about young girls, and even down to, you know, 2 and 3 year olds, because we do have, you know, infant cancer and all that other great stuff, or bad stuff, I'm sorry. So where they're having to worry about their body image. So to lose their breast, which is such a big thing to have, you know, I can only imagine what they're going through. And I think, like Carrie was saying, those affirmations that you're telling your daughter, I'm pretty sure that that's transitioning into, you know, your passion projects. And I think that I was just going to ask, is it something that you're doing, like, not necessarily a masterclass on, but maybe a workshop on body image with those girls, you know, because that's huge, especially if you don't have a foundation such as you and the rest of these ladies that are on this panel, that's, you know, telling their girls and the girls that they're around, hey, you don't have to worry about the body image that they're putting out there. So do you have any workshops like that with your passion projects?
Yeah. Yeah, you talk to girls all the time.
Yeah. With the Girls Life, one of our workshops is love yourself and become your own BFF. And so that one is all about, you know, learning how to speak to yourself, how to look yourself in the mirror. I love the project for that class, you know, looking yourself in the mirror and being able to love what you see. And, you know what I mean, every negative that's coming against you, one thing is really teaching and speaking on what friends are. You know what I'm saying? Just because they're around you, and that doesn't mean they're your friends. And you don't have to accept everything that's being said about you or to you. You can, at any age, you know, you use your voice. And so that's a very big thing for me. Use your voice if anything's uncomfortable, and don't accept anything that's, you know who you are. And if it's not speaking to who you are, then nope, we don't deal with that. So absolutely. Yeah.
That's one of the most powerful things you can teach girls and women,
right?
Is that they do not have to accept things, that they have a choice, they have agency, and they have a voice, and it's up to them what they accept and what they don't. That's one of the things I always teach girls and women is if something feels right, just say, I don't accept that. That is very powerful. It's a very powerful thing to say, because it within that statement is the implied statement that it's my decision to make. I will decide. It's not up to you to dump on me. I decide what I receive and what I accept and what I reject. And I don't accept that. So I like that. It's so important. And, you know, so much is about body image. I think that's one of the reasons we get such buy-in from men on breast cancer. You ever notice that? Of all the things that affect women, you know, they're never rallying around for how miserable it is to be pregnant, how miserable it is to be on bed rest. They don't rally around for you when you talk about fibroids and endometriosis and periods and bloating. No, they're nowhere to be seen. But you start talking about losing breasts, that gets their full attention. And it's amazing to me. You know, I honestly believe that if this was something that happened to our ovaries instead of our breasts, I wonder what kind of buy-in we could get. Nothing against men. It's just they are oriented, you know, quite sexually, obviously. Body image is a huge thing to us in light of how we know they receive it. So I really wish there could be a disconnect there. We should love our bodies because they, you know, grow and nurture children. They are strong. They, you know, support our big brains and help us, you know, do great things, and we can do wonderful things with our bodies. But I think if we would kind of maybe stop, especially thinking of breast as, you know, just, you know, something fun to make sex interesting. But hey, I'll take all the support I can get. I don't want to turn anybody off. Helping me, man. Whatever motivates you. I just wish it might be a little different. What are some of I want to ask you what some of your wins have been on this journey. Like, tell me some of your good days, like good news or something. And then I also want to know some bad spots. What were your lows?
Let's see, some of my good days. I think, well, I would say my good day, even though it seemed like, maybe it's kind of bad, but it wasn't, was the day we shaved my hair. That was a win for me. I thought going into this, when I first sit and talk to the doctor, how you hear them saying stuff, but everything starts fading out because you're just so focused on, when he got to that part. Now, I've been one that I love, just don't mess with my hair. And so he was like,
your hair is your crown. Your hair is your crown.
Yeah, so he's telling me about the chemo and the effects, and I got stuck right there about the hair thing. So I thought when it came time that I was just gonna be so distraught and it was gonna be the end of the world. But when it came time for that, I mean, honestly, that's when I felt the strongest.
Good.
And that's when I felt like, after my son shaved my head and everything, I mean, I was already positive and already strong, but it was like after that, and I looked myself in the mirror with no hair, it was almost like I had superpowers. So I was like, oh, I'm good, And then that was a win. And I would say another win for me was I love to dance. I love to worship dance. And that was a fear for me, and that I would be going through this and I wouldn't be able to dance anymore. And so I was able to, after I went through my surgery and things, they were like, you can't lift your arms, and but being able to dance, that was a win for me. I was very happy about that. And some of the losses would be, well, I went through a lot during that same time. I lost my husband.
I didn't want to mention that until you mentioned it. I didn't want to say that.
And so
I think everybody's minds right now just got blown a little bit.
Yeah.
How in the hell are you doing this without your person?
Well, my family, my faith. Yes, I have people that support me and surround me, but that was a big loss, and it was like the day after I came home from having the mastectomy done, and so that was just horrible, and that affected me greatly.
I'm so sorry, Lynette.
Yeah, because
I don't have any other words.
Back and forth, to my appointments, and so it was. Going through that, losing him, and then feeling like, it was like, like I had to start life completely over, because it was like, not only, did I lose him through the mastectomy and everything, it was almost at that point, I was losing a sense of self as well. And so that would be my biggest loss throughout this journey. Yes, but even in that, I find myself, gaining strength, and but that was the biggest loss.
No doubt. So you're grieving an unimaginable loss.
Right.
You're trying to help your children grieve the loss of their father. And someone thought it'd be great for you to have cancer in the middle of that.
Yeah.
Thanks, universe. What the heck, man? Yeah. But then you do go, okay, I've got a lot of challenges here. I got a couple of choices. I can give into this.
That's right.
Or I can show my children how to overcome adversity, and that there's still a lot of great things in this world, and life is good, and we're all grateful for what we have.
That's it.
I can't even think about that. Carrie, what are your thoughts?
That's the part that gets me, is that anybody that's watching that thinks that they've been dealt a rough hand of cards, when you listen to Lynette, and she's already going, Lynette, I never realized, I have never talked about the fact that it happened the day after your double mastectomy. So you experience the loss of a sense of self, and you expect to come home and have your husband support you, and then your husband's taken from you. I mean, anybody that's watching this that feels like they've gone through loss needs to realize that you've gone through just as much, if not more, and you can be the guide, because I still never hear you down. And I know you're struggling, but yet you go through it with such grace and such beauty. And your whole purpose in this journey, not only through losing your husband, but through your cancer, is to help other people make their lives better. That's still what you're trying to achieve in life. So it's just so inspirational and commendable. I did want to ask you then, your books. Have you written about a book about this part of your journey yet? Or what are your books about? What are they called and where can people find them?
No, I have not written a book about this part of my journey. I am working on a book about this part of my journey. But my books, the first book I wrote about was just about my upbringing. And the books I write, they're using collaboration books where I have stories of myself and other women. And everything is just to empower, because I feel like we're greater together. And so the first one was, the name of the book was You Have No Idea the Hell I've Been Through. And that was even before before this journey. So that was the first book that I wrote. And the second one was, like you can see here, Beautiful You Are. And that book was geared towards empowering young girls. And then the last book had that was with the Swan School. And that one that was the distinctive approach. And we just got this one released and are putting that out for our launch next week. And so, and all my books you can find on the Swan School website. You go to www.swanschooljax.com and all of my materials there.
Yeah, I see that you've got your handles, your social media handles up in the background, because I wanted people to be able to follow you and get more information about Swan School, your books, all that sort of thing. But I also wanted to ask you about kind of education and tips. Are there things that you learned on this journey that surprised you, that you had never heard before, that you think people need to be aware of? One of the things I'm thinking, did you learn anything about the prevalence of breast cancer in African-American women versus Caucasian women? Or are there things that you have learned on your journey that you think, I bet people didn't know that?
I did learn exactly that, with African-American women and Caucasian women, even in the treatment that you received, was something that I have seen and encountered, was like, whoa. And yes, that was a big eye opener for me, going through that I learned that I have to stand my ground. I have to be my first advocate, especially as a woman of color, you have to, the treatment was just not the same unless I stood my ground. So
and that's been borne out through research. When you look at the outcomes, people who've got historically disadvantaged experiences, same experience when it comes to healthcare.
Really?
I was listening to this thing today about this test that they have, that with a blood test, a simple blood draw, they could test you for a bunch of cancers. The assays are that good now. But guess what? It's not covered by insurance, and it costs $900 something if you pay cash for it. Who do you think that's going to historically disadvantage? Women and people of color. It's going to be the people who make their money with their bodies. It's going to be people who don't have health insurance. So they're not going to get as good. They're not going to get early diagnosis. They're not going to get better treatment. They're going to have worse outcomes. It's a terrible thing to not have power in this country, in any position, but it really affects whether you live or die and the quality of your life.
So true.
So I really encourage people to reach out. Again, we talked about how difficult it could be to wade through the research if you're not educated in that. So make sure you have people you can bounce it off of. To try, and then make sure, I think, get organized before you go to your doctor's appointments. Do you have tips like that? Like write down your doctor's, take somebody with you to take notes. And again, you're treating during COVID. So unlike most conditions, you can't bring a buddy to all your treatment, I wouldn't imagine.
No, I could bring one. But that was a big tip that you said, as far as writing things down, record it on your phone, do something, because I guarantee you, when you go into the office with the doctor, you're going to forget it all. They're going to start saying stuff, and all you're going to hear is what they're saying. Your questions are gone, and then you leave there like, oh man, I didn't ask about this, and I didn't. That was a big one for me, because I did it many a time. So I'm like, man, I didn't write it down. So write it down or record it, because one thing I've learned, if you don't ask, they are not going to tell you.
No, they're not. No, they're not. Their motivations are different than yours. They're on a schedule. They've got to do, you know what I mean? So you've got to be your advocate and say, hey, listen, I need 2 more minutes with you, please.
That's
I have a
it,
couple
yeah.
of questions, sir. And then you need somebody with you. I have done this, and people don't believe it. People think I'm lying, but I'll go to the doctor's appointments with clients. I've done that several times with people because I know their mind is blown. It's like I tell them when you come to see us, I said, listen to me, here's my cell phone number because you're going to get it back to the parking lot or you're going to be at home later. You go, what did that lady say? What did she say about this? What happens next? I said, so I want you to call me. I said, it's not, it's not like a test. You don't have to memorize it. And I don't care if you record me or whatever. But when I went to these doctor's appointments with one of our clients, she was an auto client. She just happened to have breast cancer during, her treatment for the auto case. And I said, well, I'll go with you. I know these doctors and I understand a little bit. Maybe I can help you understand it. And I'm so glad I did. And she's very grateful. She's very grateful because all that stuff just started going over her head. She's like, no, radiation, what did the guy say? And so I think that's number one, because you can get a brain fog before you even have chemo. And I understand chemo will create kind of a brain fog type of a thing. I've heard this.
Very real.
Let's get back to Rose. Let's wrap up. We've only got about 7 more minutes with Lynette. And I appreciate, again, your grace for sharing your very, very poignant story with us. Thank you. But Rose, let's go around the panel one more time as we close today.
Yeah, I was thinking about what you were saying about body image related to the breast cancer. And it's true, men aren't lining up to advocate for, HPV research, even though they could, play a real part in preventing people from HPV. Yeah. But yeah, with my mom's experience getting reconstruction was like, I think at the time it's just what everybody does. It's you're on the plan, you're getting this treatment, and then reconstruction, and all of this. And I know she's expressed some like regrets or like, I just went into this process and I didn't really think about it. And it's like, because you're doing it, I guess, for a lot of people to feel more like yourself back in your skin, look normal, not like a freak or whatever. But it's like, so you look normal on the outside when you're in your clothes, but there's all kinds of scars and stuff going on under there that when you're looking at yourself alone in the mirror, it's still like, did I do this for myself or did I do this because it's what society they don't want to look at me and be like, what's wrong with you, you one-boobed lady,
Yeah, or you don't think, do I want to have to explain this?
Right.
Do I want to have to, but it is a deeply personal decision. But yeah, it is so, because it affects your breast. It is so much tied into sexuality.
Right.
Yeah,
it is.
I just thought, like you said, you have agency. You have time to think about it. This doesn't have to happen, right now. I know they want to like get in there, but you can decide what you want to do. And I thought that was interesting to hear her express that after the fact, And for Lynette, can you give us an etiquette lesson?
Oh, yes.
I feel like I can
etiquette lesson.
Please.
Oh my goodness. That's so funny. You just threw me. Let's see.
I have a question. I have an etiquette related question. This is good. Yeah. I saw this on TikTok recently. There's somebody that does etiquette on TikTok, and it talks about when you're a woman and you walk into the room, how do you walk through the door? How do you carry yourself when you walk into a room? Do you walk in and like kind of shrink like a shrinking violet, like a wallflower? Do you walk in tall? Do you, hold the door for somebody else walking in? Maybe that can kind of give you a lead into some good etiquette.
Right. Well, as a woman, I'm going to say absolutely not. You do not shrink back. And I think that's one thing that is different in etiquette today. One thing that we're very passionate about. Everybody using, etiquette. People think etiquette, they think soft, and they think, you gotta shrink back, even in using your voice. But no, etiquette is learning how to stand tall. You just make the other people feel considerate as you're doing it, So when you walk in a room, your presence should be felt when you walk into a room. I am Lynette, and here and I am present. So yes, I'm gonna walk in tall. I remember growing up, like I said, I think this is my background. We would always laugh at my father. because he would always be like, we represent the Jenkins, we would always be like, man, you walk into every room like you are the president, and we've taken that on. And so regardless of, how I'm feeling now outside the door, because I've done things that I may feel like, Stuart Little, or, or the little chicken, but you know what, when I hit that door, do what I have to do, it's shoulders back, head up, chin straight, and we going in. So you always walk in that way. You don't shrink back.
I have a little saying that's one of my little things as a motivational speaker. It says, walk into the room with the expectation that people cannot believe they're getting the chance to meet you.
Exactly. Yes, I believe that. Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
I don't know. We had some people watching. I couldn't find my comments. I was looking at the wrong place. So listen, we've got Ariana Giles, and we got Najia Devereaux. Does that sound like a familiar person to you?
It does. Ariana's my niece. Nisha's my daughter.
There you go. Oh, and Whitney, my daughter. She came up with the name of that book, the cancer book I was talking about. It is called Emperor of Maladies. Emperor of Maladies. It's a great one. Yeah, they're watching and they are enjoying it, and they give you a lot of smiley faces. So, all right, let's see. Let's go to Kia next, and then we'll finish up with Carrie.
Oh, I think I have, one, you talking about your advocacy, that is definitely, I'm so glad Dana brought it up in regards to the difference between, Caucasian and, minority. One of the biggest things I know my mom was saying is that she has a very high tolerance. And I think that's one of the things that they believe about minority women, that we can tolerate everything. So don't give them anything because they can tolerate it. So she kind of tried to make sure that she let them know, like, yes, I can take it, but if I'm looking at you and saying, hey, I need this, like you said, she had to be that advocate for herself, along with my dad being there with her. Yes, so that was an amazing thing. Yep. So I'm so glad you guys brought that up. But I also wanted to say, are there any upcoming events that you have coming up with any of your passion projects that we can possibly get involved in, or others can get involved in? And then one last thing, what's a mantra that you live by? As far as we've all pretty much stated, our different missions. One of our biggest things here at the firm, and I think all of us live by, is helping people come back stronger. So what's one of your biggest mantras? I know it's loaded, so hopefully.
I'm like, what did you say at first? Right. Yes, let's see. See, I really forgot the second part of what you said.
Okay, so the first part, give us all your events, or as many as you can remember. Let's pub those, because this is going to be on video and people can definitely come back and get involved. And of course, if we can get involved, that's something that we definitely want to do. And then what's your mantra that you live by?
Okay, so events, we do have one big event coming up this coming Monday, October 11th. The Swan School of Jacksonville. We've been doing stuff kind of like behind the scenes, but we are officially launching for the Jacksonville area on October 11th. So we're going to have like an open house and, just have people just come in and see what we're all about, what we're doing at our new location. So that is one thing that we're doing. On October 19th starts our next series 1 of our Girl Life Empowerment sessions, and also our Young Gentlemen's Program. I'm really excited about those. And then in November, we'll be starting our cotillion classes. And the cotillion classes are for junior high and high school, and they are for young boys and girls. That's how we're doing it. And that one will end with a big ball at the end in July, actually. So I'm looking forward to that. Off the top of my head, that's it. Like I said, I have a book that I am working on, but I'll put that out later.
Okay.
And as far as
post it in the EmPower plant so everybody gets a hold of it. But we got to hear this
mantra. Oh, mantra. Oh my goodness. Do I have a mantra of my own? I mean, like I said, I'm just really about serving. I don't have like something I just do, whatever my hands find to do, I do. And I'm just about empowering. I know personally, what I lean on is, it's a scripture, and that scripture is, I will remain confident in this, that I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. So I believe and walk in the fact that, as I am here, I don't, some people, I was raised very religious, and some people like, oh, when we get to glory. I'm not trying to wait till I get to glory. Okay. I know that there are promises and good things promised to me right here, right now. So, and that's what I remain confident that I will see those things, before I go. So
you will, but not anytime soon. They'll be there. They'll be there. Glory ain't going anywhere. Glory.
Right now. I want to enjoy myself now.
You got plenty to do here.
That's right.
Carrie, let's wrap up with you today. What are your final thoughts and remarks, and having Lynette, your friend, here with us today?
I mean, Lynette, I just want to thank you for sharing so much and being so vulnerable for all of us, because it's so, I keep saying inspirational, but you are such an inspiration to everybody. And if you could say one thing to a woman or her family or her husband or partner who is watching, that is going through just having received the diagnosis, what would you tell them that they can rely on and that they can remember to help them through their upcoming journey?
I would say one thing that I use to rely on is that it's temporary. It's temporary. Sometimes we take, and initially I did, with the diagnosis, when my husband passed, that initial hit is like, oh my gosh, the world is over. We start thinking the negatives. I've been there where I start thinking what about my children? Am I going to get to, that's the initial, but to really back in, this is temporary. You know what I'm saying? This is temporary. I'm going to get through this. It's going to be okay. Live your life that way, regardless of what is said, because you want the good moments and the good memories to outlast, you know what I'm saying? The other part, create those memories. And so I would say, live your life like what they say, live your life like it's golden. Just go out there and do it, and know the power that's within you. And one last thing, I believe so wholeheartedly from my journey that the journey of cancer, more than the physical, is in your mind. Mm-hmm. It's in your mind. So if you can combat those thoughts of the mind and bring in that positivity, your journey is going to be much different. So work on that, work on that. And it's only temporary.
Thank you so much, Lynette. I'm going to try one more time to get this name. Lynette Lealwalcott. No.
I say it like 10 times a day, Dana.
Don't feel bad, Dana. I wouldn't even try. Good luck. I wouldn't try.
I'm gonna say thank you, Lynette.
Thank you, Lynette. You are well done, Dana.
No, I appreciate it. You know what you remind me of? You remind me how much power we have. We have so much power.
We do.
Right here. Already have it. People go out here trying to jockey for power in the world without fully appreciating how much they already have. And you should exemplify that in the way you live and your deeds and your work. I appreciate so much your sharing your journey, sharing your story about your husband, sharing experiences with your children with us, and letting us see you struggle, but also come back stronger in every possible way. You're exactly right. You're Fasig Brooks material, lady. We like it. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the EmPower Hour, brought to you by the EmPower Plant from Fasig Brooks, where we try to empower women and all the people who care about them. So this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Make sure the people you care about are getting screened and checked and making sure to take care of their health. So we will see you back next week, next Thursday, 4:30, Facebook Live on the EmPower Plant for another EmPower Hour. Thank you. Have a good week.